Have you ever noticed a crow leave something shiny near a human? A bottle cap, a bead, a piece of foil, sometimes even a tiny toy. It feels like a gift, and that raises a strange question. Why would a wild bird bring anything to us? Most people imagine crows as clever scavengers with an obsession for sparkle. Maybe they simply drop random objects. Maybe we notice the pretty ones, then invent a story. But some crow encounters are harder to dismiss. A person feeds a crow for weeks, then one morning something appears on their porch. Not food, not nesting material, a small object placed where the human will find it. Was that crow saying thank you? The honest answer is, we cannot know exactly. A crow cannot explain its motives to us. Still, behavioral evidence points to something more interesting than random sparkle. Crows may be building relationships with humans, and sometimes objects become part of that relationship. First, we need to understand what a crow sees. To us, a crow can look almost identical to every other crow. Black feathers, dark eyes, sharp beak. But crows are far better at faces than we expect. Studies suggest that American crows can recognize individual human faces. Not just clothing, not just movement, faces. In one famous line of research, people wore different masks near wild crows. One mask became associated with being captured and handled. The other did not. Afterward, crows scolded the dangerous-looking mask whenever it appeared. They remembered it for years, and the knowledge seemed to spread. Crows that never experienced the capture also reacted with alarm. They had apparently learned from other crows. Imagine that for a second. A crow does not just see human. It may see that human is trouble, or perhaps that human leaves peanuts. This changes everything about the supposed gifts. If a crow recognizes you as a particular person, your relationship is personal. Not human personal, perhaps, but personal in a crow's own social world. And crows live in intensely social worlds. They watch each other. They remember conflicts. They cooperate with family members. They investigate danger together. They also seem fascinated by unusual events. A dead crow may attract a noisy gathering of other crows. This is often called a crow funeral, but it probably is not mourning in the human sense. Researchers think these gatherings may help crows assess danger. Who died here? What happened? Is this place safe? That matters because crows survive by noticing patterns. They are not simply reacting moment by moment. They are collecting information. Your backyard can become part of that information map. There is the cat who chases birds. There is the dog who ignores them. There is the person who throws bread. And there is you, the person who reliably leaves walnuts every morning. For a crow, reliable humans are unusual. Wildlife is full of uncertainty. Food disappears, predators appear. Weather changes, rivals steal things. Then a human behaves predictably. Day after day, food arrives. That human becomes worth remembering. But why bring an object back? One possible explanation is exchange. Crows understand that objects can have value, not necessarily monetary value, but practical or social value. A stick can be a tool. A shell can hide food. A shiny fragment can attract attention. In captivity, some corvids have learned basic trading tasks. They give an object to a human. The human provides food. That does not prove wild crows are intentionally paying us, but it shows they can learn a simple exchange rule. Object goes here, reward comes back. Now imagine a crow finds a bead. It has no obvious food value, yet it is interesting. It is portable. It catches light. It may be something a human notices. If that crow has learned that humans respond positively to objects, it may repeat the behavior. Not because it understands gratitude like a handwritten card, but because it understands attention, outcomes, and relationships. That is already remarkable. There is another clue hidden in crow behavior. Crows cache things. They hide food for later. They remember where they put it, and they often hide food differently when another crow is watching. Some studies suggest crows can anticipate theft. If a crow has stolen before, it may become especially cautious around caches. Why? Because it may project its own experience onto another bird. I would steal that, so maybe you would too. That is not proof of human-like mind reading, but it suggests flexible social thinking. A crow is constantly asking, in its own way, who knows what, who is watching, who can be trusted, who remembers. Humans can become part of this mental puzzle. A crow may test you. It may drop something nearby and watch your reaction. It may approach, retreat, then approach again. It may bring another crow to inspect the safe human. To us, this looks like affection. Sometimes it may be, but the scientific version is more careful. The crow has learned that you matter. You are not just background. You are a predictable character in its world. And perhaps the object is a tiny message. Not a message with words, more like, I notice this, now notice me. That sounds almost childish. Yet human children do something similar. A toddler brings you a rock. The rock is not useful. It may not even be pretty, but the child has discovered something. Then they pull you into that discovery. Look at this. Look at what I found. Crows may not be doing the same emotional thing. We should not assume that, but the similarity makes us pause. Maybe sharing attention is older than we think. Maybe it appears in different forms across intelligent social animals. Consider dolphins. Dolphins sometimes carry objects like sponges, seaweed, or fish. They may use objects while playing. They may also present items during courtship. An object can become part of a social display. It says something about ability, interest, or status. Then look at bowerbirds. Male bowerbirds collect colorful objects and arrange them carefully. Blue feathers, berries, plastic fragments. They build visual displays to impress females. For them, attractive objects are definitely social tools. They are not gifts in the human sense. Still, they influence another mind. And that is the important part. An object can change a relationship. Crows may use objects differently. They are not building decorative galleries for people, but they are observant enough to notice what gets a response. A bright bead earns attention. A dull pebble does not. Maybe the crow learns that distinction. Or maybe sometimes the object simply caught the crow's attention first. This is where the internet can mislead us. A sweet story goes viral. A woman feeds crows. Crows leave sparkling trinkets. Everyone agrees the birds are grateful. It is a beautiful explanation. It might even be partly true. But science asks a harder question. How often does this happen? What else was happening around the birds? Were the objects intentionally placed? Did the crows receive food after leaving them? Could the objects have been dropped while feeding? Those questions do not ruin the magic. They make the magic more real. Because the real story is not that crows are tiny humans in feathers. The real story is stranger. They may have their own kind of social intelligence. They can recognize us. They can remember us. They can warn others about us. They can learn from our behavior. And they can change their behavior based on what works. That is enough to create moments that feel deeply personal. There is also a darker side to this relationship. If crows remember kindness, they may remember cruelty too. A person who scares or harms a crow may become a long-term threat. And crows do not always keep that information private. They call. Other crows arrive. Young crows can learn which humans are dangerous. Your reputation may travel through the neighborhood, carried by wings. That sounds dramatic, but it makes evolutionary sense. For a crow, sharing danger information can save lives. Humans are powerful animals. We build roads, remove trees, leave food, and bring danger. We can be a source of shelter. We can also be a source of chaos. So crows have every reason to study us closely. They live beside us without fully belonging to us. They watch our routines from telephone wires. They learn when garbage trucks arrive. They know which parks have picnickers. They recognize the sound of a familiar gate opening. And maybe they notice when one particular human is gone. There are stories of crows waiting near homes after a feeder disappears. Stories are not controlled experiments, of course, but they fit what we know about crow memory. A crow does not live in a simple world of instinctive triggers. It lives in a world filled with remembered places, faces, and opportunities. That does not mean every crow gift is deliberate. Sometimes a crow probably drops a random object. Sometimes a person finds meaning because humans are meaning-making animals. We see a coin on a windowsill. We feel chosen. And honestly, maybe that feeling matters too. Not because it proves the crow felt gratitude, but because it interrupts something in us. For one moment, a wild creature seems to notice our existence, not as a threat, not as a machine, not as scenery, as an individual. That is a powerful feeling. Scientists have another word worth remembering here: reinforcement. When a behavior brings a positive outcome, it becomes more likely. If a crow drops objects near you and you respond with food, the pattern may strengthen. The bird learns quickly. This does not make the interaction fake. Learning is not fake. Your dog learns that a leash predicts a walk. Your friend learns that you laugh at certain jokes. You learn which messages get a reply. Relationships, even human ones, contain patterns of reinforcement. We respond, they respond. Over time, the pattern becomes history. For a crow, perhaps a gift is part curiosity, part accidental discovery, part learned exchange, part social experiment, and maybe, in some cases, something we do not yet have a perfect word for. Because gratitude is a big claim. It carries human memories, manners, and moral ideas. A crow likely does not sit on a branch feeling indebted. It does not write a mental thank you note. But gratitude may have smaller building blocks: recognition, preference, remembered help, a desire to approach rather than avoid, an urge to interact with a known individual. Those building blocks may exist far beyond humans. Crows force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. We often treat intelligence like a ladder. Humans at the top, everything else below. But animal minds may be more like a forest. Different branches, different strengths. A crow cannot write a poem, at least not with ink. But it can remember a face for years. It can solve problems with tools. It can coordinate with family. It can learn what other crows fear. It can notice the tiny details we ignore. And sometimes it leaves something behind. Maybe it is a gift. Maybe it is a trade. Maybe it is a test. Maybe it is just a crow being curious. But perhaps that last answer is the most important. Curiosity is not ours alone. Somewhere above a busy street, a crow watches a human. The human leaves food. The human looks up. The crow considers a bright object in its beak. Then it flies down. And for a moment, two very different minds meet over something small.